As you know, I'm a simple man. Not as simple as you, obviously, but still, there are times when the issues of the day grow too complex for me to comprehend. And in those moments, when I feel lost and confused, then, just like you, I look for answers in the wisdom and moral insight of men like Hunter Biden. For example, take the recent controversies over illegal immigration. In my charming, dimple cheeked innocence, I always thought, hey, no one is above the law. Illegal immigrants have broken the law. ICE is authorized to enforce the law. So what's the problem? But then I consult the wisdom of Hunter Biden, who recently said, quote, and this is a real quote, people are really upset about illegal immigration? F you. How do you think you have food on your effing table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your effing garden? Unquote. And of course, when I realized it was illegal immigrants who put food on our tables and wash our dishes and tend our gardens, I immediately had my wife deported. But Hunter Biden is not our only source of political wisdom in this crazy world. We can also turn to Hollywood actors, because surely, if Hunter Biden's life is an example of probity to us all, then Hollywood actors have many important ideas. Jeff Daniels, for instance, is an actor so talented he can make even the most implausible characters seem vividly real, like when he played James Comey as an honest man. A shallow observer like myself, or even a shallower observer like yourself, might look at the second Trump administration and see massive tax cuts, secure borders so my wife can't sneak back into the country, billions in tariff revenues, low inflation, known nuclear weapons for Islamists who believe the end of days will come just as soon as they get nuclear weapons, and you might think, wow, I'm sure glad I voted for Donald Trump. But not Jeff Daniels. Jeff says, and once again, I'm not making this up. In fact, I couldn't make this up. He says, quote, I still think about Kamala and how I think she would have been a good choice because she would have done what Lincoln did, unquote. And how can anyone disagree when you remember Lincoln at Gettysburg when he said, quote, at what point do we uplift and highlight the consumer's right to expect that the innovation would also be weighted in terms of solving their everyday problems, which are beyond my craving for Doritos? Which Lincoln followed with that unbearable, high-pitched, cackling laughter of his. Well, that might have been Kamala. I get them confused because Jeff Daniels can't tell the difference. And finally, after you've consulted Hunter Biden and after you've studied the political thought of Hollywood actors, you can always turn to the searing insights of corporate comedians like Jon Stewart, who responded to the cancellation of fellow corporate comedian Stephen Colbert by saying, quote, and once again, these are Stewart's exact words, quote, go F yourself. Go F yourself. FFF yourself. Go F yourself. Unquote. Now, friends, that kind of witty commentary on the news of the day demonstrates the wisdom of having every single comedian hosting a corporation's television show hold the exact same political opinions as every other comedian hosting a corporation's television show. Because if comedians with left-wing opinions are not entitled to monopolize every single corporate comedy job in show business, that would mean that corporations should hire comedians with a range of opinions wide enough to entertain an audience large enough that their corporate employers won't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on network shows that get their asses kicked in the ratings by Greg Gutfeld on cable. So, in conclusion, if you ever find yourself lost on the winding road of life, remember, you only have to turn to an entitled, overpaid midwit spouting the received opinions of the Democrat Party as if that were an act of daring or intelligence, and then you will truly know where our elites want the rest of us to go and what they want us to do to ourselves when we get there. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. We are back laughing our way through the summer of American lunacy. I sometimes think when I do an opening like that, I make those jokes about wives and my wife, and there must be women in the audience sitting there thinking, that man must be married to the sweetest, most patient, most loving woman on the face of the planet to put up with him. And that would be approximately 100% correct. All right, in a moment, I'm going to talk about the novelist's view of history, especially the history we're living through in this moment. But if you want to see how great novel writing is done, please go on and pre-order a copy of After That, The Dark. It's the new Cameron Winter love story. It won't be out till October, but it really helps if we pre-sell it on Amazon and anywhere else you want to get it. It is, I'm absolutely convinced it is the best book in the series so far. You can start with it, and then if you love it, which I promise you you will, you can go back and read the rest of the series. It's a love story. It's a locked room mystery. It's a suspense story. It's got just a lot going on. After That, The Dark, please go on and pre-order it. I know I'm putting it, way ahead of times, but I'm trying to push another book down the throat of the New York Times bestseller list. Also, if you are watching this, wherever you're watching, if you're watching it on DailyWire Plus, where we hope you're watching it, or on YouTube, or just kind of imagining it in your head, or just staring into space and it appears before you, leave a comment, even if it's just in space. And if that comment is sufficiently racist and hateful and sexist, it'll fit right in with our material and we'll read it on the air. Today's comment is from Stephen Palmer, 8072. He says, Stephen Colbert's cancellation will be remembered as the day the laughter died. And that is, Stephen, that is just so, so true. Although oddly enough, not my laughter. All right, let's get to today's episode, The Innuendo Wars. I like things that are made to last, like my marriage. And it's no coincidence that we have Boll and Branch sheets, because those are also made to last with they have the same long-lasting quality, and they offer extraordinary softness to start and get softer and softer for years to come. Boll and Branch crafts their sheets from the finest 100% organic cotton woven into a soft, breathable, and durable fabric that delivers exceptional quality you can feel from the first touch. The sheets become even softer with each wash, improving over time while maintaining their luxurious comfort and breathability, and we all need some of that with the warmest months upon us. And again, it's because I never sleep, I really appreciate my Boll and Branch sheets. They really are soft. They're really attractive too. They look really nice. I don't care about that. It's dark, but I still do love the fact that they just feel so good. Don't take my word for it. Every purchase is backed by a 30-night worry-free guarantee, so there's no risk in trying them out, and you can have complete confidence in your investment once you realize they really are the best sheets on the market. It's time to invest in your sleep quality with Boll and Branch so that you can wake up refreshed and ready to make the most of every day. Get the best savings of the season during Boll and Branch's annual summer event. Get 20% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/Klavan. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/KLAVAN. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look easy. But if you spell it right, you will save 20% and unlock free shipping, limited time only, and some exclusions apply. All right, Chapter 1, Real Wins, Imaginary Losses. So I've been talking, I guess for the past couple of weeks, at least last week, a couple of weeks, I think I've been talking about the power of the imagination. The imagination is not where imaginary things happen. It is the organ of perception with which we see the unseen world. It has a language. The language is imagery, metaphor, stories, even music sometimes. It expresses the things that can't be expressed. It's where we see spiritual truths like the existence of God and the moral order. And because we can't see these things but imagine them, and because just like we can see things wrongly or understand things wrongly, we can imagine things wrongly, we have to learn to train our imaginations to imagine the moral order and God correctly. This is why in the Bible it says faith is counted as righteousness. Paul says, I think faith is counted as righteousness because you have to believe before you can see, and then you have to believe in the right things in order to see things rightly. And the Bible also tells us that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. That's Genesis. The imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. So it's twisted, it's broken. Our imagination is broken, and we have to train it to see rightly. We do that with prayer and reading the Bible and other wisdom literature, with rituals. And as far as I'm concerned, we do it through literature and the arts, if you learn how to use literature and the arts properly, which is why you should read all my books. But right now, an amazing thing is going on in this country. Donald Trump is having one of the greatest presidencies ever. It's only 6 months in, but we have lower taxes. I mean, we can say he avoided a major tax hike, but he really just extended a huge tax cut. We have secure borders, unbelievably secure borders, the most that I can remember in my lifetime. We have got a new trade deal with Japan. I think the Philippines, Iran, with its apocalyptic ambitions, has been stymied. I just have to read this out because it's so incredible. The stock market is soaring. Inflation is low. We've got these great cultural victories, which make my heart incredibly warm. Columbia University has agreed to pay, I think it's like $200 million to make up for teaching our best and brightest to hate Jews. I think liberals should be just as much in favor of that as conservatives are. Gender mutilation is being dropped at hospitals all over the country. Racist DEI policies are being dumped at corporations. Stephen Colbert, a smug, unfunny, entitled little man, has been canceled, and I think he was bad for America, and I'm glad. I hate to see anybody go out of work, but I think, he can probably sweep up the halls at, with his network. There's probably some job he can do. The Washington Post is dumping all of its woke writers. So when I finally get around to canceling my subscription to the Wall Street Journal, which is going south, maybe I'll go up with the Post. And I know what you're thinking when I do this. I know you're thinking, oh, see, now he's going to start playing that Trump happiness montage again. And we're not. We're not going to do that. We're not doing it anymore. I have run that into the ground. It was a funny joke, but I've just run it into the ground. But I will play this.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
All right. That did sound suspiciously like the Trump happiness montage, but there were subtle differences you may have missed. The point is, we're barely talking about this incredible just drumbeat of wins day after day after day that are good for the country, that are going to improve the economy, that are going to strengthen our stance against China, which I think is really the whole point of it all. Instead, we're talking about these dueling scandals that are going on, and scandals about things that happened many, many years ago. And people are saying, this is silly. Even Trump is saying, well, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about my wins. It's not silly. It is not silly. The people who are saying so are trying to distract you from a very important battle that is going on. We are in a battle for the imagination of the country, for the instruments that shape that imagination, entertainment, news, information, the academies where people are taught and their imaginations are shaped. James Joyce, I've quoted these many times, but James Joyce said that the novelist creates the uncreated conscience of the race. And Percy Bysshe Shelley, the great poet, said poets are the unacknowledged legislators of mankind. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the way we see the unseen world, which is going to affect the way we make laws and the way we live. And again, it's not just artists; it's influencers and news media and all the rest. So we're fighting for the righteous ordering of the American imagination. So we had this populist uprising against a corrupt and failed elite class, right? That is what we have. Remember, this is an elite class that thought, oh, here's a flu. We're going to destroy the economy. We're going to rob people's freedoms. We're going to tell them they can't go to church. We're going to, burn down cities and everything. And that's going to be, and cheer for the people who burn down cities. We're going to make a saint out of a drug addict who was killed while resisting arrest, and all of this stuff was going to go on. And then it was just, we're going to still be in power. Nobody's going to stop us from being in power because that's how powerful we are. And instead, this populist uprising has made it possible for us to dump them because, and the uprising was made possible by this new form of information dissemination through the internet, just like the Reformation was made possible by the printing press. And that has allowed Donald Trump and a bunch of honest little revolutionaries like the folks here at the Daily Wire to take on this empire of lies, which was run by ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times, Hollywood, Harvard, Yale, all of those people, all the liars. And we were able to beat them because of this new technology. And now in the rubble of that battle with the bodies smoking, the dead people lying around everywhere, we are now fighting about who will get to rebuild the essential infrastructure that shapes American thinking. And the thing is, there's so much information because of this revolution, and so many of our authorities have lied to us, and so many of the ordinary people who are speaking are out of their ever-loving minds on both the left and the right. It is now virtually impossible for us to tell which revolutionary character is an honest guy and which is Tucker Carlson. And so I want to give you some novelistic wisdom. When you are a genuinely terrific novelist, a guy who's capable of writing a book like After That, The Dark, which while I'm talking, you should be pre-ordering, you try to show that every single character has an interest, has something that he wants, right? It might be financial, something simple. It might be sexual. It might be romantic. It might be psychological or spiritual, something that he needs that shapes the way he sees things, right? This is true of every character. There are no people except, saints maybe, but most people have some interest in everything that's going on. And that is what makes it possible for these clowns to say there's no such thing as truth, right? Because each person is just seen, it's just a social construct where the powerful are doing this. But that actually is a lie. That's just another lie. There is such a thing as truth, but each person sees it from the perspective of his interests. And that makes it possible for people to challenge them on their interests, right? So all of us want certainty. Everybody thinks he has some trick that's going to give them certainty. Some Christians think the Pope is infallible about certain issues. Some think every word in the Bible is literally true. If they can find a quote, it doesn't matter how hateful, how low, how slimy they are, but if they can quote something in the Bible that backs them up, then they're being a good Christian. Or if they can say, Christ is king, whatever it is, that is going to give them the certainty that they're in the right, even though they suck. So if you have people who think that, for instance, you think some Democrats just teach themselves that any leftist is a selfless crusader for equality, right? Can't possibly be governed by lust for power. Republicans think right-wingers are selfless crusaders for freedom. Actually, Republicans usually think other Republicans are rhino cowards. But the thing is, uncertainty is everywhere and personal interest is everywhere. There's no point at which you can say this is absolutely true, except for maybe death. So you have to train the imagination to see the truth. And that's what we're fighting over. That's what what these scandals that we're arguing about, the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, and now the new scandal about Obama and the Russian hoax. And even, I think Trump is a great president so far. He's just an absolutely great president, but he has his interests. And Obama, I think, is a sinister anti-American, but the people who attack him have their interests. And it's up to us to find the truth even through those interests. So people will say this to you all the time. Oh, he's just saying that because he's this or he's that, or he has this or he does this or he wants that. That may be true. Everybody has interests, but that doesn't mean there is no truth. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're fighting over, how to find the truth. Graza olive oil. I love doing these commercials because I was just eating some and it's great. And now that summer's here and you're ready to have a backyard barbecue, Graza olive oil has got your back with their pure, never blended single origin olive oil that's as ready for adventure as you are. Fire up the grill, pack the cooler, and make this summer deliciously unforgettable. What makes Graza so special? I was just saying that last night. I said, this tastes great. What makes it so special? I'll tell you the answer. It's all about that single origin goodness. This means you're getting a traceable, fresher product without any lower grade oils sneaking into the mix. Plus, who hasn't gotten frustrated with those messy tins and drippy spouts olive oil usually has? Why do they have that? This is why Graza has gone super fun squeeze and spray bottles. Just aim, squeeze, and you're good to go. Even I can do that. It's even the worst cook could do it, and you're looking at them. They've also created 3 different types, so you've got the right oil for whatever you're cooking. There's Frizzle, their newest addition, with a higher 490-degree Fahrenheit smoke point that's perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Then there's Sizzle at 410 degrees, which is your go-to everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. And finally, there's Drizzle. That's the one I use because I can't cook. This is your bold, punchy finishing oil that you can sprinkle on salads and dip bread in. It really tastes good. So head to graza.co and use code Klavan to get 10% off of Trio, which includes Sizzle, Frizzle, and Drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef-quality meal. Again, that's graza.co, promo code, how do you spell it? Let me tell you, it's Klavan. You will get 10% off the olive oil trio. Chapter 2, everyone dares call it treason. So we have these 2 battling scandals, Epstein and Obama, 2 sinister people who did really, really terrible things. And there's probably, I would say there's no question that Tulsi Gabbard has brought on this Obama scandal to appease the Trump base and hope that they stop paying attention to Epstein, which is not going to work. But still, that's probably why they did it. But that doesn't mean it's not true. So Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, she releases new documents showing that the Russian collusion hoax was, in fact, an actual hoax, an actual fraud. And even the idea was that Trump had colluded with Putin and with the Russians, and they had, with his help, meddled in our elections and changed the voting. Okay. And so they've hacked into our elections. And it now turns out that even the idea that Putin supported Trump over Hillary is based on virtually nothing. It's based on a fragment of nothing. And of course, so much of this was set off with this Steele dossier, which accused Trump of visiting prostitutes in Moscow who urinated on the bed, just complete nonsense. And all of that was Oppo research funded by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. All right. So, and, it was amazing. It was amazing. I saw James Comey, former head of the FBI, who was part of this conspiracy, I guess we can call it. Brett Baer on his show, on Special Report on Fox, showed a 7-year-old interview with James Comey, in which Comey is clearly not telling the truth. I mean, he says things like, have you ever, have you seen John Brennan and Clapper, the guys who were part of this conspiracy? And he says, yeah, I just had dinner with them. And Brett Baer says, and did you talk about Trump? No, So the idea is Barack Obama, there's no real information from the intelligence that Russia had any kind of effect on the election. Everybody always is meddling with everybody else's elections. I'm sure we do it, and I'm sure they do it, but it was nothing. It was like a couple of $1,000 spent on Facebook posts and things like this, just typical stuff that was nothing. And basically, Obama said, go find me some stuff. And then they put in the Steele dossier, which was complete trash. John Brennan insisted it be included in intelligence reports, and Comey went in and briefed Trump, who was coming into the presidency, briefed Trump about it so that it could be leaked to the news media, and then the news media ran with it. All right. So again, probably releasing the timing probably has to do with distracting people from Epstein. But it doesn't matter. It's obviously the truth. So what do? The press comes out immediately. Caitlin I Hate Trump Collins from CN, I Hate N, comes on at a press conference and basically tries to say, this is just a matter of your interest. Remember, we're talking, everybody has an interest. So she says that Tulsi Gabbard was out of favor with the president, and she's just doing this to appease the president. And Carolyn Leavitt, who I swear, I mean, I'm always teasing her about how cute she is, but she is dynamite. She just smashes her. Watch this. This is cut 5.
What would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the director of national intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the president of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to, and that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made.
So I mean, it's just that was expert, because what she makes the suggestion. What do you say to people who say, well, and it's true. The only people saying that are in the press. But just to be fair, I will say that I think Tulsi Gabbard is making a mistake when she does what I call pinning the needle. She's everything on the right has to be I mean, the left does it too, but everything on the right has to be, we've got to put Obama in jail. This is treason. It's sedition. So Tulsi Gabbard does this when she talks about this political dirty trick. This is cut 2.
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
Now, it's not a coup, and it's not a treason. I mean, it's not treason. I'm sorry. Treason involves violence against the government. Even Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were executed 1953, I think, were executed for passing nuclear secrets on to the Soviets. They were put to death for it. They weren't put to death for treason. You would think that would be treason, but no. And that was just espionage. They were put to death for espionage. It's look at the Constitution. It is very, very hard to accuse anybody and get an actual conviction for treason. Obama is not going to jail. I can almost guarantee it. Look, you can always be wrong about the future, but the Supreme Court decision, the same Supreme Court decision that gave Donald Trump immunity for official actions, is going to protect Barack Obama. Probably nobody's going to jail. Maybe John Brennan. I would love to see John Brennan go to jail. He may get nailed for lying under oath, and he is a bad guy, but I wouldn't bet on it. So if that's true, then the question is, why is the media going to such lengths first to ignore this obviously huge story? This is a huge story. I mean, it really is a big deal that Obama was this scurvy, this low, this sleazy, this Nixonian, this dirty, climbing in the mud Paul, Chicago Paul, which is always what he was. As those who have been listening to the show would have been hearing me say again and again, why are they working so hard to kill this story? Here is Margaret Brennan, who can always be counted on to lie like a bum to cover up for the left. Here she is talking about this story on CBS, cut 3.
Just statement of fact here. A bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee investigation found that the U.S. intelligence community's assessment of Russian interference in the 2016 election was correct. They deemed it to be so on a bipartisan basis. I'm saying that because today and yesterday, the director of the intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard, has said that she is referring for prosecution former American officials she accused of treasonous conspiracy, a years-long coup against President Trump, because they assessed Russia had tried to influence the election.
So just to add to that, according to Newsbusters, that was the network coverage for Sunday. That was the network coverage of this story. That was it. Just her denying it all. And what they're saying is, well, there was this bipartisan panel that said the Russians tried to manipulate the election, but it didn't change any votes. That's what conservatives said. What conservatives said at the time, people like me at the time said, sure, they meddled with they're always meddling. They're spies. We have spies. They have spies. This is kind of basic stuff, but they didn't spend any money. They really didn't do anything. Here's what the left was saying. Here's what the news media was saying. This is cut 4.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump is the end of our democracy. Votes were definitely affected. Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election.
No doubt. The Russians hacked the election.
Yes. Russia hacked the election.
Fact, Russia hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President Trump says he still wonders if the Russians hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
If he admits it, it casts a shadow on his victory over Hillary Clinton.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
You may have missed that guy in there. One guy you may not have recognized, Stephen Colbert. He used to be on television. He's completely forgotten now. But so why are they working so? That's what they did. That is what they did. And remember, we're fighting for the power to shape the American imagination, which sees what can't be seen, right? That sees the moral order, that sees the existence of God, that sees what America means, what it means to be an American. Why do we care about all these things? And here is the underlying issue. It's not just the line. It's not just that line that they did and they've done for so long now. It has to do with Barack Obama. Barack Obama is a sinister person. His voting record, he lived as a politician. His voting record was full of abstentions, so he never took a stand that could be held against him, which is a mistake that Zohran Mamdani is making in New York, because he can be seen saying, I want to destroy the capitalism. I want to, bring back the Intifada, globalize the Intifada and all this. So there are tapes of him saying that, videos of him saying that. There was almost nothing on Obama. So the press was able to say, here is this handsome, eloquent, black guy. Hey, he's the guy you're supposed to love. He's the guy we've all been waiting for. He's the light bringer. He's the light wielder. He's the savior. I mean, what was it? I can't remember who it was. They said we thought he was the savior, and that's what they sold to us. His voting record was a fraud. He pretended to believe, for instance, in sacramental marriage, which is marriage between a man and a woman, after having already filled out a form as a candidate saying he was in favor of gay marriage. Then he lied and said he devolved. Then, the minute he won in the Supreme Court with Obergefell at just a terrible, terrible decision saying that gay marriage is in the Constitution, which is ridiculous, the minute it happened, he lit the White House with a rainbow, got corporations on board, and stuffed it down our throats with Gay Pride Month. I'm surprised it isn't Gay Pride Year. When Dinesh D'Souza, this is how sinister this guy was. Dinesh D'Souza showed in a really good article, I'm trying to remember if it was in Forbes, it was somewhere, maybe well, it doesn't matter, but it was in a big magazine. He showed that that Obama had adopted the anti-colonialism and anti-Americanism of his father in his search for a personal identity as a black guy. Obama had Dinesh imprisoned for a minor campaign error that normally would have cost Dinesh a fine. Obama obviously supported Iran's nuclear program, which was part of his idea that Iran should be the big power in the Middle East, because why should it be Israel, who is in line with American values, which Obama hated? He gave them money which they used for terrorist acts. His IRS helped silence the Tea Party by not giving them tax exempt status for their organizations, and then he lied about it and lied about it and lied about it. He pretended to be outraged and then lied and said there was absolutely no corruption. And when he left office, he didn't leave D.C., which has been what the kind of George Washingtonian thing that each president has done. He stayed around to manipulate the Democrat Party. And all of this while the press was telling us he was a god. He was a beloved figure. And he was a liked figure. But during his presidency, every other Democrat in the country just about was voted out of office because people didn't like his policies. They didn't like Obamacare, which is a disaster. Okay. The Democrat mission for years now has been to take the demos out of democracy, to take the will of the people out of the democracy, to have an influence machine so powerful that Republicans would be emasculated by fear. And they were, until Donald Trump came along and until the internet broke that monopoly. They wanted the public, they trained the public to hold every Republican flaw against every Republican and no Democrat flaw against any Democrat. So if Donald Trump spoke unclearly and said there were fine people on both sides, suddenly he's a white supremacist, even though he said, I'm not talking about the white supremacists. He had fine people on both sides. He must be a white supremacist. But if Obama, as he did, goes to a church where hatred of America was preached, where the preacher said that America deserved to be bombed on 9/11. It was just chickens coming home to roost. Obama gave this ridiculous cover-up speech where he talked about this is what African Americans see, and I understand that white people see differently. And David Brooks, the so-called conservative at the New York Times, said, what a great, unifying, brilliant symphony of a speech. That's what's being fought over, the ability to just so monopolize the information space that we are afraid to imagine that they are utterly wrong. The thing that happened when Trump won the second election was suddenly we realized it wasn't just me who was sitting there going, I think I'm being lied to. It was the guy next to me and 77 million other people standing next to him. It was so many of us. They tried to convince us that this very, very small sliver, it's about 10% of the Democrat Party, was 90% of the country in order to take the power of people, of voters, out of the elections. They just wanted to freeze you so you wouldn't even tell a pollster and call up and say, well, I'm not going to tell him I'm for Trump. Then he's going to think I'm a terrible racist bigot. I can't say that, so I'm not going to say it. So even the polls are not going to reflect Trump's popularity. They wanted to tell it. They remember all through the Obama administration, maybe it's now so long ago that nobody remembers. He was saying, that's not who we are as Americans. That's not who he was always telling us who we are as Americans. Meanwhile, saying, I'm going to fundamentally transform America into something it never was. That's the left's agenda. And it's in our interest that everyone is held accountable. That is why I can never be called MAGA, because I will hold Trump accountable too. I'm going to give him more leeway than I'm going to give the left, because I think the left are communists and I think Trump is basically an average middle of the road American. I think he's to the left of me, but I think he's still right there in the center in terms of policy. But I will hold him accountable too. But we have to start with the left. We have to start with the left because they have owned this battlefield for 50 years, and we are on the verge of taking it back, and we cannot let them return. It is so sad that many people just sleep through the greatness of their Helix Sleep mattress. The mattress is so comfortable, they doze off and they don't get to find out how comfortable it is. I, who lay awake all night, really appreciate the Helix mattress. One thing I've loved about it is how well it does with temperature regulation. It's really important, especially as summer gets incredibly hot where I am. And it's easy to connect the mattress to other wearable devices so you can actually see the data to back up your sleep improvements each night. No more questions asked. What makes Helix different is they don't just sell you a random mattress. They actually match you with the perfect one for your body and sleep style. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or like me, a non-sleeper, they have got you covered. All you have to do is take their sleep quiz and find your ideal match. And trust me, when you find the right match, you will wonder how you ever slept or lay awake on anything else. Right now is actually the perfect time to upgrade your sleep experience because Helix is offering a fantastic sale. Go to helixsleep.com/Klavan to get 27% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan for 27% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know that we sent you, helixsleep.com/Klavan. But you're asking probably, sure, okay, but I'm happy to do that. But how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. Chapter 3, Epstein again. Now, the media is fighting back against our discovery that Obama's a cheap, sleazy, Nixonian, dirty Chicago trickster politician, okay? Because like their behavior during COVID, when our churches were closed and our speech was silenced and all that, and our cities were burned, the media wants to be able to lie and lie and lie and then say, why don't they trust us? Why don't they, we've lost the trust. Why have we lost the trust of the people? And they keep saying to us, oh, it's 9 years ago. The election was 9 years ago. Trump won the election. What's the big deal? And the thing is, they're the big deal. They're skeezy, power-hungry, lying bastards. They're the big deal. And that's what we're doing, is we're debunking the entire mythology that they created out of Barack Obama. Now, I've said this before, Trump fumbled the ball on Epstein. You don't create a big question about what happened to the Epstein files and then release the information saying we're not investigating this anymore in the dead of night, which is essentially what they did. Just sounded like we were being screwed. And so the media and the Democrats who thought the Epstein story was like a crazy Pizzagate conspiracy story until suddenly about 2 weeks ago when they saw Trump make a mistake and now they start to close in. Now they're starting to leak these stories suggestive of Trump's complicity with Epstein. It's really disgusting. And it's, talk about sinister. The Times does an article tracing Trump's friendship with Epstein. We all knew about this. Trump was very honest about it until he found out the guy was a creep. The guy made a play for somebody for a girl at Mar-a-Lago, tossed him out of Mar-a-Lago. That was the end of the friendship. The Wall Street Journal, and did I mention I am this close to canceling my subscription, runs a story about a birthday greeting from Trump. I've covered this before, and Trump is suing. He says it's all a lie. But they ran another story today saying there were lots and lots of names on this Epstein's birthday card. Did they not know that before? Why is this two stories instead of one story? There were lots of names. One of them was Trump. No, they divvied it up because they're trying to build this story, right? They're trying to build it up. And now they've released a story, which is true, that Pam Bondi, Attorney General, briefed Trump that his name was in the Epstein files, which is, of course it is. What kind of prosecutor would not say to people, who was there? Was Trump there? Who were the people who came into this net? But this is who the guy is. This is who Epstein was. He's a guy who manipulated his way into the midst of the richest and the most celebrated among us. They all knew him. Everybody knew him. Everybody hung out with him. And we just don't know who the bad guys are. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, he uses this very familiar techniques. He plays to your prejudices, plays the left-wing prejudices as if they were facts. Suddenly, the left wants this story told. Suddenly, it's urgent that we tell the story. It's cut 7.
The reality is that it's all connected from the standpoint of Donald Trump, his administration, and House Republicans have delivered nothing more than a government of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires. They've passed massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors. And in the context of this Jeffrey Epstein scandal and their refusal to share information to the American people, despite promising to do so, one must ponder the question, what are they hiding from the American people, and what billionaires, what well-connected donors, what elite people are they trying to protect?
So it's all part of one big thing that they're fighting. It's clever. It's a clever strategy. He's saying to the left, this is the party of the rich, which is totally untrue. It's totally untrue. Trump is not the party of the rich. Trump himself is rich, but his donors are not rich. His followers are not rich. His base is not rich. The base of the Democrat Party are the rich people now. That is absolutely true. All right. On the right, we have these influencers like Tucker and Candace Owens who feel discarded by the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities. They were trying to teach us that it's all the Jews, it's all Israel. They just have this thing in their head about Israel and the Jews, which makes absolutely no sense. But they didn't get their skeevy identitarian Jew hatred into the Oval Office because Trump's never been that guy. He's never been that guy. He's the only person fighting anti-Semitism on campuses and holding them to account for their anti-Semitism. He's been a good friend to Israel. He hasn't been run. Nobody can say he's being run by Israel. That's insane, although they do say it. So now they're bringing this. They are now the big Epstein people on the right because they want their influence back, and they're going to harry Trump about this thing. And he, as I said, he fumbled it, and he never admits that he's wrong. So he's going to try and, play out the fumble. So just to show you what a wonderful sacrificial person I am, right? I watched all 3 hours of Tucker Carlson interviewing Daryl Cooper on Epstein. Daryl Cooper is this Holocaust-denying, Jew-obsessed amateur historian that Tucker Carlson thinks is the most brilliant historian ever. And his proof that he's the most brilliant historian ever is that Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, Jews, you may have noticed, don't like Daryl Cooper because he's full of it. He's full of garbage. All right, this thing, 3 hours, it was a masterclass in conspiracy theorizing. And you could just see the people who the people who had caught up, you could just see who the fools were. What they do is they start with facts and then they blend the facts with wild conjectures. So for instance, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's girlfriend and pimp, apparently, who's serving time. She's the daughter of Robert Maxwell, that big conservative media mogul who was a great friend of Israel. He was a hero in the war. He escaped the Holocaust. He was a really powerful, amazing character. But he worked with Israel and probably worked with the Mossad. That blends seamlessly. He fell off a boat, and people think nobody's quite sure how he died, but people think he may have had a heart attack while he was urinating off the side of his yacht and fell into the water. He was a very sick guy, but he was also a guy who was in debt to a lot of people, so we don't know. And they just seamlessly blend that with the Mossad killed him, which is, I think, highly unlikely. It actually does not make a lot of sense. But let me just give you an example of how this works, because there was one part very early on in this thing that really caught my attention. They talk about the fact, Daryl Cooper talks about the fact that Donald Barr hired Epstein to teach at a prestigious school in New York, the Dalton School. And Barr worked for the OSS, which was the precursor of the CIA during World War II. And he wrote science fiction novels in his spare times, one of which had a story based on young people being sexually abused, okay? He's the father of Bill Barr, who became attorney general when Epstein was convicted, right? And this is how Tucker Carlson reacts to this. Cut 6.
What are the actual odds of that? The Attorney General of the United States, who arrested Jeffrey Epstein, oversaw his death, declared his death before the investigation ended, is the son of the guy who hired Jeffrey Epstein at age 20 with no teaching experience or college degree to teach at one of the most prestigious schools in Manhattan. If you were like, hey, Grok, what are the odds? What do you think the odds are?
So what are the odds? First of all, Bill Barr did not declare Epstein's death. He said it was an apparent, it's an apparent. And then the ME came in, the coroner came in and said, yes, this was and then Bill Barr said, well, the coroner has determined it was and then the final report came out. So he wasn't jumping the gun. That's just ridiculous. I think Barr is one of the few truly honest people we have, but then it's what are the odds? Because there's all this hint that's going on, and Tucker brings everything back to Israel, which is I have nothing more to say about that, but okay. And by the way, if the Mossad was involved with Jeffrey Epstein, I want to know. I'm not trying to protect anybody. I'm not trying to protect anybody. If the Mossad was involved, if they were using Epstein as a blackmail factory, which just seems ridiculous. It seems like something that would be in a spy novel, but who knows? The world is full of weird things. Let me just give you an example of something that my wife said when I was telling my wife about this. She reminded me of this. Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss runs the Free Press. She is now an extremely powerful Jewish woman in the media and a big supporter of Israel. Okay. My kid brother, and her father, before she was born, went to college together and became great friends. And when he found out that Lou, Barry's father, was a conservative, my brother would call me and say, oh, he really likes your work. He likes what you're doing. He's saying this, and he has a piece in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or whatever. And so he knew Barry Weiss's father. Barry Weiss's brother went to school in Oxford and knew my son. He knew my son. Okay. Barry and Nellie are great, great friends with my sister. She's my sister-in-law, but she's kind of my adopted sister. I mean, I love her to death. It's Caitlin. She's a terrific writer for The Atlantic. She's great friends with them. I go over her house. I meet Barry. We had drinks together. We talked. What are the odds? So I must really be hooked in with Barry Weiss. I can't get Barry to come on the show. She keeps promising to come on and chickening out because she doesn't want to be, nobody wants to be associated with me because I'm such a loose cannon. And I say these things. You should see, when I have guests on the show and they're listening to the things I say, you should see the looks on their faces when they come on a lot of times. So I have no influence with Barry Weiss. I have none. And yet, what are the odds that I would be connected, yeah, the odds are actually pretty good because I walk around New York, I bump into people I know all the time. It's 8 million people. What are the odds? Well, the fact is the population of Manhattan, which is 1.6 million people, but really it's about 1,000 people in an area that runs from 70th Street to 23rd Street between Park Avenue and 6th Avenue, because that's where the people who work in media are, and those are the people that I bump into and I know, right? So, and by the way, a lot of those people are Jews. So that's suspicious, right? So it must be an international conspiracy. So it's this amalgamation of suggestive facts and wild conjectures presented as if they're facts. All right. On top of this, the human mind works by making theories and then testing the theories. That's how science works. You think maybe it's this causes a disease, and then you test to see if that's true. But if you have a bizarre, truly bizarre theories, like the Jews run everything, or Brigitte Macron is a man, I think she's now suing Candace Owens, which should be really interesting since it'll only take a blood test to determine which one of them is right. 9/11 was a psyop, the moon landing was a fake. The more absurd the theory, the more suggestive the evidence will be, because you'll be able to say, why didn't anyone investigate this? Why isn't anybody bringing it? Why, what do they think? We're stupid? Why, Candace the other day said, Israel is an occult nation because the Star of David is a hexagram. What do they think? We're stupid? You decide, you tell me. So, once you say the Jews are to blame for everything, as I've said, the Jews are very successful people. They will turn up in the elites of all kinds of businesses. They've won all these Nobel Prizes for science because they've been a great contributor to our society and other societies. But if there's a bad one, he's going to be a powerful one like Epstein, right? So why is this so important? Why do I still think that the Epstein theory, my basic assumption is that Epstein was a child molester and maybe a couple of rich people and powerful people were drawn into that. That's basically what I think is going on. But at one point in this 3-hour Cooper, Tucker, Carlson thing, Cooper says, basically, why are these people allowed to do this and get away with it? And that's the way I feel too. That is the way I feel too. He's right about this. That's why the story is important. I talked about this before. There's a Broadway show on now celebrating Michael Jackson. No, I'm sorry. No, the guy was a homosexual child molester. He never got convicted, so I should say he's an alleged. But why are we celebrating him without mention? Why is Roman Polanski winning an Oscar after he drugs and sodomizes a 15-year-old? Why is Woody Allen's, pedophile script for Manhattan? Why is that getting a script nomination? Why was the Catholic Church allowed to relocate pedophile priests for so long? Instead of having a theory into which everything fits, Jews, Israel, Mossad, whatever it is, let's just find out who screwed those little girls. That's what I want to know. That's how you get it. You get at the truth, and then you can start to build a theory. Let's do it the other way around, because that's the only way we're going to get at the truth and get it to the narrow story. So David Marcus, attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell, says the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche went and talked to her. He's talking to her again today, which is what I've been suggesting for years and years. I've been saying, why not go in and offer her a deal and find out what she knows? Stop going after Trump. Stop going after Israel. Stop going after anyone. Just find out who screwed underage girls and build a theory from the facts instead of building facts from the theory, because that one thing that Daryl Cooper and I agree on is there's no reason people should continually get away with abusing children. As we celebrated Independence Day earlier this July, it's good to remind ourselves of the freedoms our founders fought to protect, especially the fundamental right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Here's something that might surprise you. There are still Americans today whose most basic right, the right to life itself, is at risk. That's where PreBorn comes in. They're doing incredible work through their network of clinics offering free ultrasounds to women facing unplanned pregnancies. Here's what's amazing. These ultrasounds don't just provide medical care, they're actually saving lives. When a mom sees her baby on that screen and hears that heartbeat, everything changes. But PreBorn isn't just about the baby. They truly care for these women as well. They provide love, support, and resources during what can be an incredibly difficult time. Look, if we really believe what our Constitution says, that all people are created equal with unalienable rights, then that has to include the smallest and most vulnerable among us. These babies deserve the same rights our founders declared: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. You can be part of this mission for just $28. That's the cost of one life-saving ultrasound or you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds for $140. To donate, just dial pound 250 and say baby. That's pound 250 baby, or visit preborn.com/Klavan, preborn.com/KLAVAN. Final chapter, Coldplay. So one more scandal, and this is a good one. It's a sex scandal. Coldplay has a concert July 16th at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, where the Patriots play. There's a kiss cam. It captures 2 executives from an obscure tech firm who are having an affair, right? And the thing goes viral, and the man has to leave the company. What's it called? Astronomer. And they identify them. I don't know why the woman is HR. I don't know why she doesn't have to leave. But I was immediately caught by the fact that people were being shamed for committing adultery, which I think people should be ashamed of and shamed for, right? And in the New York Times, this woman, Helen Schulman, she writes short stories. She wrote, "I thought that the toxic sludge of shamelessness had wiped out the old-fashioned notion of humiliation, but I was wrong." That's part of the sentence. Let me read the whole sentence. "I had thought that the toxic sludge of shamelessness, that love child of Donald Trump and the internet, had wiped out the old-fashioned notion of humiliation, but I was wrong. In the age of Trump, it's a strange relief to watch as 2 fellow citizens come to realize they have done something reckless and inappropriate and not pretend they had nothing to hide." Now, what's fascinating about this is it's not Trump who made us shameless. It's the New York Times, where she's writing. When the New York Times has run stories normalizing and rejecting shame for sadomasochism, for sexual strangulation, for sluts, for fat people, for adultery, for open marriage. No shame. There's no shame that exists at the New York Times, but it's all Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump, if anything, is a product of that culture, which was, as I've always said, he's a product of left-wing culture. He is not the maker of left-wing culture. So Trump alone is supposed to act like it's the 1950s. Everybody else is living in Sodom and Gomorrah, and it's fine. But Donald Trump alone is a bad guy when he, when I was watching the P. Diddy trial, and P. Diddy virtually got off for, enslaving these women and using, and I thought, how are you going to convict him? What are you convicting him for? He's doing what the New York Times recommends for your marriage. That's what the New York Times tells you to do if you're married. And I thought, and the women said they consented. That's the only standard we're supposed to have about sexuality. The fact that he's belongs in prison for the rest of his life. I don't see what law he's breaking anymore. But at the same time this is happening, there was another kind of controversy. Andrew Tate, who's always saying things about marriage, comes out and says, he's talking about marriage. I'm not sure if this is an old thing, but he's always saying the same thing. He was talking about people getting divorced and how men get taken in divorce court. And he says this is cut 8.
So it's absolutely incredible that all these people are out here trying to be confused as to why I'm the most famous man in the world. Nobody gives a shit about them. Because I say it how it really is. There is basically no advantage to marrying females in the modern world. There's no point. There used to be tax breaks. There used to be a societal pressure. All of that's gone. You can hate me. You can say I'm bad for society. You can say all these things. That's fine. But if you're a rich man in the world today and you're out there falling in love like a child, like a simp, thinking, oh, I love her so much, and marrying these women, you're out your mind. You can love her without marrying her. You can have kids without marrying her. You can take care of her without marrying her. There is no reason why you need to sign up to being destroyed. Hate me if you like. It's the truth. Anyone who gets married is a idealistic simp. It's actually extremely juvenile for you as a full-grown man to go, I love you so much. It's gay.
It's gay to love women. It's gay. It is funny when people get things wrong. They always wind up saying the exact opposite of the truth. But people were starting to arguing with Andrew Tate, and he's the most famous man in the world. I just look at a guy like that and think, a guy who's telling me he's the most famous man in the world. Do I really think that this is a secure, happy, person who's having a good time in life? What can I say? However, both sides, the materialist left and the materialist right, are telling us the same thing. And this has to do more than anything with the way we see the world, the way we imagine the world, the way we imagine the unseen world. And I could talk about this forever, but I'm already out of time. So I'm going to just say this very quickly. What we are fighting about is the meaning of the female body. The female body, which is, I think, the most important question in any society. And, women's bodies are obviously of central importance to human existence, namely the creators of human existence, the nurturers of human existence. And feminism has tried to erase that because it comes with burdens and responsibilities and limitations and all this. But so motherhood, creation, nurturing have all been degraded, and women's bodies, we've tried to neutralize them. We've tried to drug them into sterility. So essentially they're second-class men. That's essentially, you use, it's kind of, it is gay. It's using people for pleasure without any kind of responsibilities, without any kind of telos, without any kind of meaning to it. But in fact, and then ultimately they say, well, since your body doesn't mean anything, Dylan Mulvaney can be a girl, right? A guy can be a girl. And now you've lost everything because now there are only guys, which is really essentially what feminism has become. I would like to put forward the radical idea that the female body is the most fantasized about object of desire in all of human life, not just for men. Beautiful women's body. Look at women's magazines. They all have a woman on the cover. They don't have men, handsome men on the cover. They have women on the cover. I mean, men fantasize about women's bodies so often that even if women never fantasized about having a wonderful body, they would still be the most fantasized about object. They are essentially the link, just as they're the link between the spiritual world of life and personality and the flesh of life. Just as they're the link to that, they're also the link between the imagination and reality. And the way we imagine what the female body is and what it's for is the way we imagine life. That's why when people argue about the perpetual virginity of Mary, they get so upset, so passionate, so angry. Sigmund Freud told us essentially that the spirit is just a creation of repressed physical desire. All our spiritual needs can be traced back to physical desire. Christianity teaches us the opposite, that physical desire is fine, but it should be a vehicle toward spiritual desire. And so we should treat women in a spiritual way. We should treat them as the creators of life. We should treat them as our partners, as one flesh, as part of our flesh, their happiness, our happiness, their lives, our lives. And by the way, this is not about other people's sexuality. It's about yours. It's about mine. It's not about other people's. You're judging other people. It's about this, what the society thinks, which is much different. Much different. The thing about sex and the thing about, therefore, women's bodies is you have to ask yourself, does it have a purpose? Is it done for love? Is it done for creation? Is it done within the context of committed love? Or is it just a pleasure? In which case it is a gay society. It's really Andrew Tate who basically has said that it's better to sleep with a good-looking than it is to sleep with an ugly woman. That it's basically he's the guy who's recommending a gay society. The idea of love, of marriage, of nurturing, of creation, of family. That's the whole core of everything. It's the thing we should be talking about, not the evil of people who aren't involved, not the evil of Andrew Tate. I could care less. I really could. Not the evil of gay people who are trying to find their own way to happiness. I want to know what this society is going to do with women's bodies, what is going to tell women that they mean, what is going to tell men that they mean. I think when they wonder why we have stopped reproducing, and America is now producing something like 1.6 children per woman, when in order to replace the human race, it has to be 2.1 children per woman. Why is that happening? Oh, it's happening because we have lost the meaning of the female body, which is the meaning of everything. Is the beauty of sex spiritual, or is it purely a physical pleasure, life or death? The choice is ours. So I have spent a lot of time on lakes and in the ocean and on rivers fishing. I love to fish, and I loved fishing in Alaska. Alaskan halibut it's not a good fighting fish, but it's a great eating fish. And I can't get up there now, but that is where Wild Alaskan Company knocks it out of the park. They deliver the best wild-caught seafood straight to your home. Each portion is perfectly sized in 6-ounce portions and packed with nutrients you won't find in regular store-bought fish. Once you taste the difference, you will never go back. Their fish is 100% wild-caught, never farmed, which means you're getting pure seafood with no antibiotics, GMOs, or additives. These pristine fish support both healthy oceans and fishing communities while delivering exceptional flavor. They really do taste good as if you had caught it yourself. Each catch is flash frozen right on the boat to preserve its natural taste, texture, and beneficial omega-3s. When you join Wild Alaskan Company, you're not just getting extraordinary seafood, you're supporting sustainable harvesting practices in Alaska while enjoying flexible deliveries and expert cooking guidance that makes every meal special. Not all fish are the same. Get seafood you can trust. Go to wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. That's wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first order. Thanks to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode on this show, which you'd be interested to know is spelled Klavan. Have you ever seen a guy fight like his life depended on it? Because it actually did. Joe Pyfer didn't just beat the odds, he beat the hell out of them. Here's a look at Journey to the UFC.
I don't care what you did in your career the last 5 years. What are you going to do tonight? Be fired up to fight. Try to finish the fight. If you want to get into the UFC and this is where you want to be Joe Pyfer.
Pyfer left home at 16. He spent the next few years homeless, bouncing around.
The pain that I know that kid went through and overcame, if you want to beat him, you got to kill him.
The second you lose, everybody forgets you. I wasn't ready to be forgotten.
That's Journey to the UFC, the Joe Pyfer story. Watch the premiere now, only on DailyWire Plus and at DailyWire.com. Klavan Klapbacks.
We're releasing the White House AI action plan. We're signing it right after this. Maybe I should just sign it right now. Who the hell has to make the rest of this speech?
It's the funniest president ever. Klavan Klapbacks, Klavan with a K, Klapbacks with a K at DailyWire.com. Klavan Klapbacks at DailyWire.com. Ask anything you like about your personal life, about politics, religion. Here is from Christian. Hello, Mr. Dr. Klavan Meister. I have been a listener since 2016, and I've taken your advice for better and even better ever since. One thing that you bring up frequently that I struggle to understand is to forego judgment in favor of grace. Obviously, this is the righteous and Christian way to behave, but it is also borderline impossible in the real world if you try to take it seriously. What is your practical, everyday interpretation on how to live this out? Well, one thing is to tell the difference between sin, in which we all partake, and crime. I mean, obviously, you are supposed to judge whether someone is hurting someone else, and even sometimes whether they're hurting themselves. Although people, I think, have the right to hurt themselves, but you are supposed to say you can't children, you can't beat up women, you can't beat up your wife. These are things that it's fine to say. They're obviously harmful. They are obviously harmful to other people, and other people need to be protected. Women need to be protected from abusive men. I think children need to be protected from abusive adults. The weak have to be protected from the strong, and even the strong have to be protected from even the stronger, which is like government and corporations and things like that. There's nothing wrong with making moral judgments. There's absolutely nothing wrong. It is the right thing to do. What you are not to do, I believe, what I think Christ was saying when he said, judge not. He was not telling us don't judge hypocritically. We already know that. He was saying don't judge. And what he meant was don't judge the state of other people's souls. You do not know what God sees. You don't know a little bit. You know 0% of what God sees. And one of the things that I think all you have to do is take a look around. Take a look around at the people who quote the Bible in order to act with cruelty and viciousness. And then ask yourself, Satan quotes the Bible. In the Bible, Satan quotes the Bible. So we know that you can quote the Bible and still be an SOB. And so what you want to look at is whether or not you are acting as a loving, joyful person. That's what Christ said. He said, love your neighbor. He also said, I've come here to give you joy, the joy that's in me. I want the joy that's in me to be in you. When you let go of the world, the thing is, the world is going to be the world. The poor you'll always have with you, abusers, gay people, all kinds of things you will always have with you. People who do secret things in their bedroom that would disgust you, even if they're not gay. All kinds of things are going to be around in this world. If you live in the condemnation and the hatred of people who are lost in that or trying to live through that or whatever they're doing, you are going to become an SOB. You are going to become a vicious, mean, small-minded, nasty person. Let it go. You know, some of the best advice I ever heard was in that miniseries, The Tudors, where Henry Cavill, playing one of Henry VIII's friends, said, let me see if I get it right. He said, drink the wine, praise the God of all, and let the world be the world. I think that is basic Christian understanding. Jesus turned water into wine. He believed that the one God should be spread through all the world, not just coveted by the Jews. And he said the world is going to give you trouble. The world is going to be a troublesome place. He didn't say change it and make it better. He didn't say it was ever going to get better. Drink the wine, praise the God of all, and let the world be the world, and love people. Love them where they are. God does. God makes the sun shine on the good and the bad alike. That's how your love should shine. That's exactly, I'm sorry, that's gospel. That is the gospel. God makes the sun shine on the good and the bad alike. That is how your love should shine. And you do it by letting people go. All right, we got to stop there and go into member block. If you are not a member, I pity you. I pity the fool who is not a member, because he is now going to be dropped into Klavanlessness unless he becomes a member right this very day by going to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. I wish I could tell you how to spell it, but I've forgotten. If you're not a member, fare thee well. If you are, come to member block.